So what's the difference between knowledge and wisdom? And why is that important? We'll discuss it coming up. So I'm Doug Smith. I'm study director at the Secular Buddhist Association. That's secularbuddhism.org. If you're new to the channel, welcome. And if you're interested in helping to try to promote a wiser and a kinder and a less stress-filled world, consider subscribing to the channel. So I say a wiser and a kinder and less stress-filled world. What is that word wisdom? How does it relate to other kinds of words like knowledge? In a personal way, when I was growing up, I was always interested particularly in knowledge, knowing things. When I would go to school, that was the thing that really drove me on. Learning about different parts of the world, learning about different parts of reality, learning the sciences, learning physics, learning chemistry, learning biology, learning about the natural world, learning about the universe. The astronomy and astrophysics always interested me. And learning about human history, which is fascinating. Both recent history and deep history, whether it's the Romans or the Neanderthals. It's all fascinating. And I think it's very, very important, of course, we all know, for making the world a better place. The more that you know about the world, the more that you can do to make it better. Who was it who said that a person who doesn't know history is condemned to repeat it? And of course, we've seen this time and time again, where the new generation forgets, let's say, the horrors of war, and so tends to jump into it with so much gusto in the future because they just don't remember it. And of course, we know the issue of, for instance, global warming, where so many people seem to simply deny the science. They simply don't know the relevant sciences, and so make it more difficult for us to attack the problem in a coordinated and useful fashion. And in my own life, I've been very, very interested in trying to help expand this knowledge, expand the reach of knowledge to the world, both in going to undergraduate and in graduate school, learning philosophy, and then later on continuing with a skeptical program. And I will say that the skeptical program in particular is one that I haven't discussed a whole lot here. It is a program for sure rooted in an ethical idea of making the world a better place through advancing knowledge and through countering what are some false narratives in the press, in the popular press in particular, all the way from what may seem fanciful issues like UFOs and Bigfoot and so on, down to really, really important issues such as those involving, let's say, global warming or certain kinds of alternative medicines, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry. A lot of these things, I think, can stand skeptical scrutiny, both on a global scale and on an individual scale, as being a kind of a help to a consumer who wants to know what to buy and what not to buy. Well, how do you find that out? Who are the kinds of sources of information that we should go to make a wise choice or an informed choice about our particular, let's say, purchasing habits? So there's a great deal of benefit to expanding knowledge and to expanding knowledge about the world in so many different ways. But there are also some downsides that we have seen, I think, in the actual skeptical program nowadays. Perhaps this is on the fringe. I think we see at times a kind of egotism involved in it, a kind of dismissive attitude towards people with whom we may disagree, which is understandable, again, under certain circumstances, but also may be counterproductive. And it may, in fact, involve people who, through no fault of their own, simply are misinformed. Also, at times, this skeptical program does devolve into a kind of scientism, which is the view that the only truths that we can ever know are those from the sciences. So, for example, this tends to be a view that either says that there are no moral truths at all, or that says that all moral truths must come from science, which is very difficult because you can't really get moral truths out of scientific experiment. And so what ends up happening is supposed moral truths are simply claimed to come out of the science without there really being a whole lot of good evidence for them. Also, and I think arguably more important, is that knowledge is often motivated knowledge. That is to say, it's rationalization rather than rational. And there was a very good article in the New York Times recently talking about how the more educated you were of a certain political party, the less that you would believe in global warming, which is really a shocking kind of result. Because what it means is that as people gained a higher level of education and presumably a greater level of knowledge, they became, as it were, more capable of rationalizing their disbelief. in particular kinds of scientific truths. And extensive research by the Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman, as well as his colleague Amos Tversky, have proven, I think, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that we are not particularly good rational animals. If what we are is rational animals, according to Aristotle's definition, we're not particularly good at it. We're very, very good at certain kinds of motivated reasoning, and often that's what comes the easiest to us. So I think rather than, at least in my own life, my feeling was that rather than focusing on knowledge, which, again, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not the end that I think we should be focusing on most directly, but rather, at least from a philosophical standpoint, from a personal kind of practice standpoint, focusing on wisdom. And what is wisdom? Wisdom is essentially the ability to come to good judgments. Now, what is good? Now, this is part of the issue. Wisdom is essentially an ethical or a moral kind of discipline. It's the understanding, let's say, that all of us are the same, that we all desire happiness and we desire to avoid pain and suffering. It's the awareness that we're all interrelated on this world, that there's no sense in saying that somebody does something all by themselves. We all do things together. It's also, of course, the judgment that scientific consensus is our best route to knowledge in that particular subject area that they study. So, for example, if there's a scientific consensus that global warming is being caused by people burning fossil fuels and other kinds of related things, which there is, then we should believe that. And of course, anything in the sciences can be overturned at any time. But that's not to say that we shouldn't accept the consensus as it exists right now. Wisdom, of course, also involves a notion of kindness and compassion for one another. This, I think, springs out of our awareness that we're all in the same boat. It springs out of our awareness that we all desire peaceful and pleasant lives, and all of us shrink away or don't desire pain and suffering. And the same kind of wisdom makes us aware of the fact that a high stress level in life is not good for us, and that anything unnecessarily stressful can probably be dispensed with. The physicist Victor Weisskopf had a very, I think, telling and important little paragraph about this, or about something very, very related. He said, "Human existence is based upon two pillars: compassion and knowledge. Compassion without knowledge is ineffective. Knowledge without compassion is inhuman." And we could say the same thing about wisdom. Either we can say that we can compare wisdom to knowledge in the same way, or we can simply say that wisdom is this unity of compassion and knowledge. That is to say, it makes no sense to talk about a wisdom that has no knowledge. Wisdom has to have a certain kind of knowledge. But it allies this knowledge to a compassion that is absolutely at its center, both for ourselves and for the world that surrounds us and that holds us and of which we are a part. I would say the biggest difference, though, between wisdom and knowledge is this: that wisdom doesn't require us to have the latest cutting-edge knowledge. Wisdom is something that we could share with, let's say, the Buddha in the 5th century BC. It's something we could share with Socrates. It's something we can share with people from different eras, from different parts of the world. It's a kind of compassionate awareness of our unity with other people. So, wisdom, kindness, and less stress. Basically, wisdom contains kindness and lower stress. Wisdom is the whole package in one. Wisdom is what we should search for. But I'd be interested in your thoughts about this. What do you think about the difference between wisdom and knowledge? Does wisdom require a kind of knowledge that I haven't discussed here? I'd be interested to know. And how do you find wisdom and knowledge manifesting in your own life, day to day? I think that's the really interest. That's where the rubber hits the road. So I hope this has been a useful discussion for you, and thanks so much for your kind comments and questions. I always enjoy reading them, and I'm sure everyone else does as well. Put some new ones down below if you like. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.